Hey guys and gals, Gold Investment Letter subscribers, thanks so much for taking the time to watch the video. Um, so I'm sitting here, and even though I haven't been emailing too often, the last weeks, and particularly like the last, I would say, week, 10 days through last weekend, I've been doing a lot of research and getting caught up on a lot of data. Actually, this week, talking to a lot of investors and people, both within our mining sector focus here at Gold Investment Letter, gold. But, this newsletter is around the monetary system. Everything's relevant. Everything is relevant. That's why, as its first competitor, if you will, which I don't think that they are in Bitcoin in thousands of years, it was relevant for me to stay on top of that situation, which I'll touch on as well. But for gold investors, because whether it's the dollar, it's the bond market, it's the macro environment, it has to do with, these are things that are all connected to how well we're going to perform as investors in our sector and in our space and in our asset classes that we choose to put our hard-earned money into. And hopefully a lot of us are speculators, okay? And I think a lot of us have made a lot of bad decisions in the past, and they're very normal mistakes that I see from everybody, every grown person who's been in the markets for a while. I don't think you've got any grit or any real wisdom until you get your teeth kicked in, right? Once or twice or three or four times, but don't make it 5 to 80 times over and over. I actually have made some fundamental shifts in how I manage my money, and I'm going to relay a few things to you guys from the standpoint of my own investment strategies, where I have capital allocated and what my thoughts are, because I'm starting a mastermind group with some friends on Monday. I tend to host these here and there, and we go for 6-week cycles, and we essentially we touch on like 4 categories of our life, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of them is business and career, and then the next one is spirituality or self-development, physical health, and then also a newer piece that has been important, and I think also very connected to everything else that I do in my life, is service. What are you doing to give back and help other people? You find that people that get rich, they end up becoming philanthropists and giving, and it's because after you get all the money, like you finally go and move on to this thing, but you don't have to wait. You don't need any money to help somebody else, or to have a cause that you care about. Actually take some action on it. And the reason I even bring that up is because I've learned a lot of lessons, and it dripped over from what I had done back in 2015-16, launching my foundation, where you looked at my balance sheet and my accounts and my net worth, and you're like, the heck's this guy starting a foundation for? He's not broke, but he doesn't have any real assets. But I just, and I don't know why I'm getting into this. I'm going to say this and move on to the markets, but maybe somebody will get something out of this. There's one principle that changed my entire life, to the point where I've got a lot of wealth at this point in my life. I'm 47 years old. A lot of you saw before your very eyes, even though the communication wasn't, always there, but you saw before your very eyes my ups and downs, and always trying to get ahead. I launched this newsletter in 2011, with 7 or 8 clients as my first subscribers when I was a broker and transitioned over. And then, built it from there. Chip 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Then all of a sudden a flush, people hear about you, it gets passed around. But I remember in the mid-teens, like 2015 or so, there was a scripture that hit me right in the forehead. It's Jesus saying, "He who's faithful with little is faithful with much. And he who is unfaithful with a little bit of something is going to be unfaithful with a lot of it." And I took that to heart. There were some real personal messages I got for some reason at that time that I just really thank God for, because I was always the fast money guy, trading, shucking and jiving and trying to get ahead quick, and trying to get way ahead, and, a lot of ambition. But, I couldn't stick it. It wouldn't stick. It would come and it would go faster than it came, right? And it can all go out the door with a few bad decisions or inaction or action or whatever. And it's all correlated to everything I'm talking about. But when I started the foundation, it was just to force myself into starting to do something at the level, the correlation to my net worth. The amounts don't matter, but otherwise, we're at risk of saying, once I get here, then I'll do this, then I'll give back, then I'll give money away, for example. Or, I don't have any time for anything. It's all about my family. But what if I carve out that one person I could mentor or something, anything? It doesn't matter. If you don't do it on a level, the message to me was, if you're not going to be able to incrementally, and that's what happens, you incrementally increase when all these things, when you take an action, and this is where it comes into portfolio management. It doesn't matter the company or the market or the stock or whatever specifically. It's what you're doing when you have a little. That's what you're going to do when you have a lot. So you don't take like crazy risks and do all this crazy stuff and go into one stock or one crypto to try to change everything, because you're just going to, how it is, your back's against the wall. It's a bad decision. And you have to do things incrementally as you would, and approach it like you got all the money in the world. I think that's the key, as well as instead of, once this happens, then there's a narrative we play over and over in our head, and we try to make our investment portfolio fit into that. And it doesn't. It ends up kicking us in the nuts. And this is what the markets do. There are so many people that, lose money in investing. And that's why, I try to listen to and give my money to, like even in crypto, I have some of my money with two fund managers, and, I've outperformed all of them. When you go back and look into the background, especially on a venture level, when you're talking about taking bets on tokens and things, I think I probably, as I dug into some of my gains and returns and things like that, and looked at the leading VCs and even the funds I was with, which these guys are smarter than I am, that portfolio managers. They're smarter. They're sharper. They focus more on risk than on reward, which is what wealthy people do. And I wanted to protect myself from myself and make sure that I still had allocation in crypto space, but it was out of my hands. These guys can handle it. I trust them. And maybe that's what you should be doing with some of your investing. If you've been trying to make it by gambling, or this is like a game to you, it's all fun and fun money. I don't know. For me, it's not. It's what made me who I am today. These, and then mining stocks, and what I did in a market like this. That's where the relevance is. I'm sorry. I've got a lot on my mind, and hopefully some of this is helpful to somebody on a personal level. But it's all connected. It's all connected. What I'm doing in my private life, my mentality, my spirituality, my even physical health. As you guys know, I ran into some things. I should be dead. I was very close, and I've been coming back from the dead, since March 27th, when I was taken into one ICU, put on, life support for 51 days, in the hospital for 57, went from 182 pounds that I walk around at. Now I'm back to 178. I look normal. But I was 137 pounds when I left the hospital in the last week of May. And, I've had a physical recovery process, also emotional, mental. It's now in that stage versus just the physical, me getting around without oxygen and things like that. And it's connected, the energy levels I have, things of that nature, in terms of decisions that I would make for myself. So we have to be cognizant we're in a minefield. So what happened that changed my financial wealth profile? First of all, you don't wait until this point. You'll do things differently. Do them. That's why I brought up this principle. He who is faithful with little is faithful with much. If you don't do something that you want to do, it's like the whole backwards way that the world goes about retirement, mostly Americans in the West. You're going to wait until you're decrepit and you're shitting your diapers and you're 65, 70 years old to retire before you spend time traveling, or you are going to do anything. You're going to do anything and save and push all of your enjoyment in life over to that point where you're having a possibly tougher time being physically healthy and energetic enough to enjoy it. And it's so stupid. It's like insanity, but it's what we all are taught to do. You have to question the consensus is what I'm getting at. And the reason I had such big success there, and it started with my investments in junior mining companies, despite mostly bad bear markets since 2011 when I started Gold Investment Letter. Mostly bearish environments. Right now, it's historically bearish. In terms of the valuations that are in the junior mining sector, and nobody's buying any of them, and nobody's doing anything. And everybody's scared about the Fed. And everybody has, I've been talking to, like I said, a lot of people. This includes big, multi-billion dollar family office money. It includes the average, dentist, attorney, entrepreneur that manages some of their own funds and has their own worldview. My brokers that I still utilize in Canada, especially as it pertains to the mining sector, which is where the action is. And everybody's got the same narrative. Nobody's doing shit. And this goes for crypto and the junior miners. But that's why I wanted to get on here and talk about this, because it was the actions that I took on a steady basis, planting seeds, accumulating some of these. And I'm just going to use the crypto as an analogy, but it's the same thing right now with the juniors. And then I'm going to get into some specifics on names that I've been buying and owning. And a lot of them, I've been able to go up. We want to buy these 2-cent stocks that are going to go to $1 or $5 and save the day and make us rich. And then we get to live the dream. You don't have to do that. There's so much upside in some of these. It's so much value in some of these very established mining companies. I can't believe it. And I'm going to walk through a couple of examples there of where I think you can make a lot of money at the end of this or towards the end. But the crypto side, just to give you an example, I approached everything very differently after this principle, really started to permeate my life. And I've had, so many different occasions where, it just killed me when the markets are so down and cheap and it. Like a lot of that things like you wish you had cash to buy, I would push back on a lot of your framework where some of you have money, you have assets in other areas, but you don't want to do anything and you don't want to move it. And you only have a certain amount that you play with in your speculative capital or whatever else. There are times to get extra long. There are times to deploy emergency cash reserves into assets that are just telling you, looking at you like, hello, buy some and you're going to be fine and you're going to make money. I don't know if it's a month, a year, whatever. It could be 2 years. Can you wait? Can you be patient? You allow that market to come to you and in its timing instead of trying to force it to do what you want it to do. I think that after the 2017 December and January 18 highs in crypto at 20,000, by the way, I got involved and I recommended publicly in this newsletter, this free content that's going to go out to everybody today. I recommended Bitcoin initially. It was under $500 in May of 2016. Okay. So it was about 6 months ahead of the frenzy. And none of us understood it. I didn't put a lot of money into it. I opened a Coinbase account. I put my, $5,000 in there or something like that. And sold it early, way early, $2,500, $2,400. And if for those of you that were around, just to recap, I shorted GBTC. I thought it was getting very bubbly and frothy and out of control already. Got lucky, saw it holding on a pullback from 2,400 down to 1,800. And then I thought the way this is trading, because a lot of us had to watch tickers and flows of money and bids and offers and chart action and make decisions live in the market back in the day without all these tools or algos or anything else and do it manually. And I was really grateful for the background I had as a broker, going back when I dropped out of college. By the way, I have no pedigree, so you might not want to listen to me if you think that that's important. I'm a college dropout. I'll take the Zuck, Michael Dell Gates, club and leave it at that. But in any event, I learned on the job about when something stops going down. You should pay attention, even though if you're in that space and you're paying attention to it, you're probably pretty adverse to taking any action and buying, especially when you look around and everybody's bearish. Everybody's waiting for the new low. Everybody's waiting. And this is what's happening with our sector and the miners and also with crypto. And I'm a buyer, and I've been a buyer. I was early. I'd rather be early than late. That's another lesson that I learned. But you guys can actually exploit that today by some of the names I'm going to pass over to you to go buy, because I'm underwater, like 20 to 30% on some of my biggest positions, because I started accumulating. I do it in small pieces. And that was what I picked up on as an overall strategy. What I'm about to tell you is probably the most important thing I can ever really relay to you from a perspective as an investor to improve your life and your returns, which, has been quite a journey and a lot of mistakes along the way. I've made a lot of dumb moves. I still do. But overall, what I experienced was I had to take contrary action. It also comes down to my own professional or my own personal portfolio management and risk management and position sizing and things of this nature, where I need to know that I have staying power. So, for example, if I'm starting to buy a high risk crypto token, I did it when Bitcoin came from 20 in January of 18. I knew there was more to it here. It got my attention even more, even though I had done some work in researching Bitcoin and things. I didn't understand the whole crypto, environment, the ecosystem that it is becoming, and is going to absolutely transform how we do everything in the future. It's not going away, guys. Bitcoin, for example, just so you know, it's important for me to say this because I had a lot of demand of people wanting to talk to me on how to get rich too, after I was beating the drum for a long time, making phone calls, begging friends and people to buy some Bitcoin back, especially in 2020 after the crash. I was very vocal, and on YouTube here, you can go through the videos and look through that. I have to do that one of these days and see exactly where my head was at what times. But anyway, some people did some things out of like trust of our relationship and my perspective, and they pay you guys. Some of you pay me for this information, right? You want the research, you want the ideas, and so take them. Was my thought, but Bitcoin was so foreign. Not a lot of people took action, but after Bitcoin was in the 40,000s and 50,000s and 60,000s and on the news every day, I'm getting inundated, and I'm not even looking at my phone anymore because I just made a freaking fortune, and you should have talked to me before. And that's why it's so important right now, is when the big money is made. It's the decisions that we make today in a bear market in junior mining stocks that I have not felt or seen valuations as upside down as they are right now. The only real comparable environment would be like that last quarter of 2015, which was at the bottom of a 4-year brutal bear market, brutal bear market off of the 12-11 bubble popping. And, gold and mining stocks were up quite a bit. And they were traced. A lot of them, they're very similar. The junior miners and the crypto tokens, in terms of the fact that they're high risk, high reward. They're volatile, they're cyclical. And so if they are still cyclical, and I'm halfway correct on Bitcoin's going, whether it's the next cycle, probably it's going to take 2 of these cycles. This is the 7th time, okay, Bitcoin has pulled back up to 80% on average in 7 massive bear market crypto winter pullbacks. It's not anything new, and it's actually acting very well. Is it going to go and break a new low and flush down? I don't know. That's why I'm doing and approaching this the way that I'm approaching it, which is I'm back, even though I have, and part of it is because I made so much, even with crypto cut down by 60%, and with the alt tokens, a lot of them are down 80 or 90, the ones that you got into from the tops, at like the DeFi names, the NFTs, the this, the that, even the bigger ones, like what you call the mid caps, the top 100 tokens are down 70%, and so it's been washed out already. The mining stocks are down in a similar fashion, but my contention is it's still the same that I said years ago. Bitcoin's either going to 0 or it's going to the millions. Okay? Next to 6 figures, somewhere in there, probably low. maybe to mid. We touch in the mid six figures on the next cycle high. Another brutal, like even bigger disaster with more broad participation pullback. But as that's the asset maturing, so it won't be as severe. Like right now, does Bitcoin have to go down 85 to 90% to hit a low? It does not. It does not. It could have already seen its low. If it breaks that previous low, it's going lower. If it doesn't, you got to be buying it. You can't, this is where the side of, what I'm telling you is contrary action. The ability to take contrary action to what you feel and what the consensus thinks and is doing. If you can't do that on some level, in some way, shape, or form, you're never going to make the most money, a lot of money in this game. It's just never going to happen. You have to be able to do that to get the best big returns. And I had, I think a lot of you have heard this, but I had 8 tokens that I chipped away at. What my strategy was after we went into the 7,000s on Bitcoin on the way down in 2018, and we're going into a bear market. That's what I figured. The bubble popped. I waited until it went in the sevens, and I knew it wasn't the low. I didn't care. I wanted to get started, faithful with little, pinging auto purchases, putting them in place on a modest level in my accounts, auto buys at Coinbase, Cash App, whatever, small amounts. I'm doing it again now. I have over 50% of my net worth, probably, if I look at it closely, still in crypto, which made up a lot of headway after, on the miners, which, was my biggest, by far, like 70% of my net worth in metals and mining stocks and stuff. And then that has shifted just because they're way down. Crypto had that big move and is still, up. In a lot of cases, I'm still up 50x or more in some of these tokens because my strategy was, I don't care how long it takes this time. I'm not going to put pressure on myself to trade or try to out trade crypto and make up a little bit here and there and shuck and jive, because you'll never hold. The best thing I did was not check my accounts that often for like most of 18, 19, unless it was when things were down and I wanted to go try to move money over and just plant some seeds and just be active in a bear environment. So I did 2 things. A split of a regular accumulation, which is what I'm doing now in my mining stocks, and I have been doing all year, basically. I was early, even going into last fall, summer, because I had such huge profits in crypto. I had 8 tokens where I took partial profits of the positions, not the whole thing. I didn't buy it all at a low and sell it all at a top. But I only mention these if they were locked in with a literal buy that I had at a certain price during 18, 19, and in the flush of March 2020 was when I put a bunch of money in. Like when we have a crash, I would put a chunk to work. Bitcoin flushed down to 3,200 from 8,000 and, 30 some $100 from high, it was cut in half in one day. And I had sold some of it looking at the world landscape at that time. And I had already been prudent, planning and having cash available during pullbacks instead of being the guy who is upside down, knows that there's value and I've got to pay my rent and I get squeezed out. That feeling sucks. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. And I had in the mid 2000 teens, that is one thing that I kind of said to myself as a mantra. That's not going to happen to me again. I don't want to be the guy who is back against the wall, making desperate decisions, really scared about what's going to happen when I should be buying stuff from people that are puking, getting turned upside down and destroyed for these decisions. It's a timing decision is really what it comes down to. And being prudent with your position sizing, meaning I would do these little buys. I had 8 positions that I locked in between 125 baggers and 650 times my money was my biggest win on Bakery Swap. It's a token that I bought in, I want to say October of 2020-ish, at 1 penny, 0.013 cents was my cost average. I only bought like 550,000 tokens, which is like $8,000, less than that. Wasn't a ton of money. A lot of you could do it too, or could have done it, but this was one of these situations where I stumbled upon it as I do in my research, and a lot of you pay me for finding. I spend a lot of time digging up stuff that's obscure, and that's why we, find these special situations. But I sold a piece of that bakery swap in chunks all the way, all the way up. I had not really sold any until it was close to under $1 initially, so that was a huge win. And anyway, $7.74, I believe, because it went to 8 in 5.5 months. $8 from a penny, 0.3. I'll never have that happen to me again in my life. Trust me, I'm not that delusional that I'm going to get a 650x ever again. But I had multiple 200 and 300x's too. It wasn't just 125 or 100 baggers. And then you talked about the 50x's and the 30x's and the 10x's and the 5x's and the 3x's and the doubles. They were numerous, because what I would do is, in market environments like today, and I just want to talk about crypto for a second. It's the same psychology with the miners, and then I'm going to give you some picks. Is that the what was I going to say there? 8 months and a half or so, this whole year, and starting back in December, the fear and greed index for Bitcoin and the crypto sector has been on extreme fear, meaning a reading of below 20 is in the below 30 is in the red. It's just like RSI, or relative strength, sort of. You've got greed kicking in, overbought after 70 on the green side on the right, and then under 30, really under 20 is where you get extreme fear. And crypto has been under like the 20-ish area, as low as I think it touched below 10 for a period of time. Over 8.5 months, it's been extreme fear readings. Folks, this is where bottoms are already in scenarios like this. Okay? But nobody's going to make, or most people won't make, 9 out of 10 people won't make a move and do anything because nobody else is. Yes, there's a time when you start to see the money flow back in that you jump in more aggressively. But if you're not doing anything now, and why does it always have to come up, at least in my mind, with the way that I think, it's all or nothing. It's like, I got to go in or I got to go out. I got to sell or I got to buy. No, you can accumulate steadily. And that's what I did in 18, 19, and 20. And when I had either a big month and I knew I wanted to allocate more into crypto in general as a percentage of what I had in my savings and investing, if I had a big month, I'd put some extra to work. If there was a market crash, I would pull money from where I had cash or whatever and put it into crypto, like in a bigger piece. But all the while, I was automatically accumulating Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of different tokens at very small amounts. And it adds up. When the longer the bear lasts or the worse the market gets, you buy through that and you're accumulating and you're socking it away. That's the way that I approach this. That's not everybody's style, and I'm not saying it's the only one to follow, but it's a good mental exercise to go through. If you're not giving away $30 or $300 a month, you're never going to give away $3 million a year, which is what you want to do and you can't wait to do when you're really, really rich one day, and it's never going to fucking even come close to coming true. If you're not giving away something now, or that could include your time, that it can include doing things, just like I'll do this later when, it's such a diseased mentality that's like permeated. And it also, our monkey brain, the side of our brain that just wants to survive and still has those conscious thoughts that come in to, keep your survival. We aren't in that environment anymore. We're not cavemen. We're in a very safe place, generally speaking. And, you have to question your own belief system sometimes. And a lot of times, because I've got really thick skin from going through so many of these since I was 20 years old, where I just felt like my gut was falling to the floor and I was going to puke because I had worked either really hard to get. The first time it happened to me was on a company called Laser Vision Centers, that I was like 21, 22 years old. I had worked for months on opening accounts, making hundreds of phone calls a day as a cold calling new broker in Chicago on the South Street, which is like the Wall Street in New York, Chicago, smiling and dialing all day long, put in all my energy and effort into accumulating that and one other stock called Modicad. And, I didn't even own that much. I owned it for probably, I had like 15 customers that, everybody's getting to know me. They didn't put any serious money in it. So call it like 150, 200 grand between them that I had raised in this laser vision, but I believed in it so much, and it was my position, and all of any brokerage money or commissions that would come as a bigger percentage when the customer hit. I always structured it that way to be aligned. And I still remember the first real pullback in the stock market that I had any skin in the game on punched me in the gut so hard. And I felt like I developed an ulcer after that in my 20s. I started to look into herbs and things that are good for the stomach, because I was like ulcerated at 22, 23 years old from these markets. That's what it can do to you. But I've developed a steel stomach. So when I actually start to get to the point, like this happened in March of 2020, by the way, it was so bad. The decline in the unrealized losses in my brokerage accounts was not fun. Trust me. But when I had it was like my gut started to give way in my mind emotionally to fear right at the bottom of, I remember back then very vividly. I called the bottom in the gold miners and gold and silver when the 3X ETFs blew up. They went upside down. They were already down so much. And then a Monday morning, they blew up, they fell apart, and they reversed. And I said, right on that Friday, over that weekend, I was like getting concerned. And then I realized that when I get fearful, because I have a thick skin for this type of stuff, it's really time to buy. And I started moving money feverishly from where I had socked it away and put it into this group. And if you're still here and you were here at that time as a subscriber, even to the free e-letter, I put out an alert to buy SLV long-term leap call options when silver had bottomed and crashed. I don't even know where it was, in the low teens or whatever. And we made a fortune on those. But you had to act in the face of blood, capitulation, and extreme fear. So being self-aware, that's why when I look at my life, my career, my health, my everything, my mentality, my spiritual life, they're all intertwined, because, spiritually, what's that deal with faith, belief? I got to have conviction for something to do it. And it's like a muscle. And right now, I've been getting all these different signs. One of the other advantages that the newsletters give me is I have tens of thousands of people like you that watch and read this stuff and that I interact with. And then there's, my personal relationships that are all over Wall Street, Silicon Valley, hedge fund managers, brokers, big individual investors. And I get to, we talk about these things, and they know that that's my game. And a lot of them are professional investors too. And I get to a consensus where, like, boy, oh boy, the fear is at a peak. I can see it. I can feel it. It's a fear peak or an apathy peak, which is kind of where I think we are today. An apathy peak with nothing but reasons that the markets are going to crash further, and you're not supposed to be doing much or anything right now. Well, I disagree. McEwen Mining. Let me just give you a couple of tidbits on McEwen Mining, because a lot of you know Rob McEwen. He's a self-made, essentially, billionaire or centimillionaire investor. I guess probably what day Mux is trading like now at peanuts. Maybe he dipped below $1 billion. He's a very wealthy man from his days at Gold Corp, which prior to that, he was in the investment management business, but he ended up running Gold Corp, rolling it up, finding the Red Lake District mines. And through the 90s and stuff, where you had no market for this type of thing, in a bear market and coming off of a Bre-X toxic thing, nobody wanted to touch this stuff. But he grew Gold Corp from a $50 million market cap to $1 billion before he left and handed it off and started a company called US Gold, which was a roll-up and merger into a shell of 3 other small companies, public, into US Gold. And that's when I first heard his name, was the day that started trading. It went from like $1 to $10 when that news was public. And it was all this hype around the fact that Rob McEwen is a superstar operator in the mining business, and he makes things happen, and he's a winner. Well, a few years ago, they ran into operational challenges at Mux. His name's now on the door, McEwen Mining. And they had problem after problem, and the stock just got destroyed. But the funny thing is that those days are far behind. And what's ahead? You want to triple your money? Do you really want to triple your money? You don't worry about whether this takes until the end of January or the end of the following first quarter of 2024. Give it 18 months. It could happen in 18 days when the market starts to finally heat up, but buy McEwen Mining. The thing is let me see here today. I just want to give you a couple of tidbits and on that, and I'll probably find these saved. I was going through this the other night and yesterday night through their corporate stuff. Here it is. So just as an example, I had dinner with Rob and the management from Phenom Resources, which is my biggest position. McEwen Mining is number 2. Okay, so this is just, I'm telling you like a few tidbits of stocks, and I'm down, especially on, I think it might be somewhat similar, but it's definitely, I think percentage-wise, more in McEwen for now at $4 US, which I believe is where it is today, because they did a 1-for-10 reverse split. So let's talk in pre-split language where it's at 40 cents, because in 2016, early 16 into late 15, I had been in 15, I wrote a report about McEwen, and I said that it could go to $5 to $10 a share, and it was like under $1. And basically it went to $5 in the summer of 2015 on that big rally we had in the miners. It was more of a bear market, fierce bounce, or it could have been the start of a bull market. And then we're in a cyclical bear right now that continues on into the secular bull market is probably more accurate. But and I was in Greece, I remember in 16 in the summer from my moped, and I said, sell half. And it was at 490 US. And people were angry that I had angry emails that I said to sell it when I said it was going to 10. I'm like, are you out of your mind? We were already up so much, and it was outperforming the hell out of the sector back then because Rob's reputation preceded itself. He was a winner and a champion and a phenom in mining and made people a lot of money, okay, including himself. We're at 416. Okay, this thing is long bottom now. 281 was the US low. The 52-week high, though, on McEwen Mining, going back a year, was $122 split adjusted per share. It's at 416 today, which let me just give you a couple of data points. So I've been right about McEwen. I've been wrong about McEwen. I've been right more than I've been wrong. But like this last, I even went on Real Vision and did a Why Gold Miners, Why Now? I believe that was in May of 19, and picked McEwen out in like the 60s. I think it was around 70 cents or a little below US. And the stock went up. I think it doubled briefly after that, but it was definitely up over 50%. And that was even like 40% within days after that interview. But in any event, so like I was already involved in accumulating, and then it hit maybe a peak at that point, somewhere around $1.50 US, if my memory serves me. I'm not far off from the facts if I'm not exactly correct. And then, it ended up fading back to what is now, 41 cents, like pre-split adjusted. All-time lows were just hit recently at 281, which would be 28 cents under 30. And I've been aggressively accumulating this in the 3s, in the 30s before that. But I started accumulating this just like I did with my strategy with the Bitcoin and the crypto, chipping away, building a position. I've been doing it for a while now. And, I'm down. I'm down like probably, I'll look in my main position and I'll just tell you guys, because you can take advantage of this. And I don't feel bad because I look at Rob's cost average. The reason this deal is so unique, and I'm just going to blaze through some of the highlights as best I can, guys, but it's worth your time to listen to this and put this on your screen. So right now I have a number of positions with unrealized losses, because I look at stuff like I have some IM gold. I at the time, they were long-term leaps. It gave me like 18 months out. I like to go long out, and I like to buy them in the money or at the money, close to the money. Buy things like that expire in 3 weeks, and it's like, well above the market. I think it's a loser's game. I've always lost that way, but I'm down nicely in the I am gold $4 calls of January 2023, which the stock's trading at $1.14. They're probably going to go worthless, and I accumulated that, and I bought too much, and I'm going to take a hit. So be it. I still stuck with it. I still believe the call, and I bought more January 19th, 2024 calls at $2 that are still down, but that are certainly not down as much as those $4 2023 calls, because I was buying those 15 months ago, 18 months ago, and the stock has been destroyed. And there's value like this across the sector. I love IAG. I'm not going to get into that one as a pick, but I believe that one is a really good one to own too. Equinox Gold, just fucking buy some and forget about it if you can. And it doesn't matter. You can, because it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or a little money. It's about the percentages that you allocate towards. And yeah, McEwen, one position, because I have positions in like various accounts on McEwen wherever I had cash available to buy on certain times. I'm still down like 30%, almost 29% on this position. Cost average is like 645. So yeah, I'm still underwater for the most part. You could take advantage of that, own it lower than me. I just bought more yesterday. I bought more today. I bought more the day before. And last week I bought a lot, which I'm happy I did. And it was around 350. But the consensus is old with this situation with Rob. How many guys or gals and CEOs do you know that takes a $1 a year salary and no options in the mining sector, and literally wrote checks for his now diluted down to 17.3% ownership? He did own up to I think it was the high 20s. It was like 27, 28% of the company that he bought. But even people like him, he's got his head down right now building value, can get discouraged with like how the market is reflecting your value. His cost average for that 17% he put $220 million into what he now owns to get what he now owns, which is 8.2 million shares. They have a fact sheet on their website, and their presentation is very good, McEwenmining.com. And so what's that cost average? Just do the math really quick. 8.2 out of 220 divided by 8.2. His cost average is in the mid 20s. I think it's a little lower. I think it's a little bit lower for some reason. When we had dinner, I said, your cost is in the high teens, isn't it? He's like, my cost is a lot higher. He probably knew that it was in the 20s. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him come back in the market soon and bring his own average down, because I just put $300,000 into McEwen Copper, which is going to be spun out. It's a private, majority owned by McEwen Mining, by the way, which is why these valuations on the market cap of McEwen Mining today, yesterday it closed at $182 million market cap. They valued the McEwen Copper private placement, just raised $82 million. The last 25 of which came from Rio Tinto, and the first 40 of which came from Rob himself, to develop the Los Azules asset out of Argentina that is the 9th largest copper deposit on planet Earth and has been trading at the lowest 20 percentile in terms of ounces in the ground of copper versus the value it's getting in the market. Okay. There was no warrant. It was 175 million pre-money, 80 million. So 230 million was the post-money valuation on just the copper division. And now you can buy the gold and the copper division for 182. Today it's up a little bit. So that'll be $190 million. Rob's put in 220 million of his own money. Do you think he hasn't built any value over the past 15 years? I mean, guys, this is a very unique producer size. They're doing 150 million ounces of gold. People forgot to give that any value. He's got assets and NSRs on shit like in the back of their filings, probably, that he's had sitting around for years that we don't even know about, that could become extremely valuable. Elder Creek is a property in Nevada that's a huge copper asset as well. They included that in McEwen Copper, which will be spun out and 60% owned by McEwen Mining is how much they own of it. And the rest is with those investors like me who wrote a big check. He had a $250,000 minimum. I put in 300 grand. It's a nice investment, big investment for me on top of what I have in McEwen Mining. I stopped thinking about adding to that position once I knew I could buy the actual liquid company for about the same amount. And instead of adding, I let Rio Tinto, he got Rio Tinto, God bless him, at the end of that, which also just did an $18 million earnout option on Elder Creek in Nevada. So those two assets, Los Azules and Elder Creek, really interesting. You're going to see that spun out in a new public company. And I think it's worth $1 billion today with copper at 350. That's why I invested at 220 million post money, or what was it, 240 or so post money, 250. With the 82 raised and the 175 pre-money valuation, I had to see value on my investment that it's worth already should be valued at $1 billion. But it's been a bear market, and this is the time to do these type of deals. I don't care if I'm down or it takes an extra 6 to 12 months to go public or whatever. I don't give a shit. I can wait, and I will wait. I have no choice. But the fact of the matter is, that's another protection mechanism for myself. I like doing that. Where I can't touch that investment, no matter what I want to do, or if I need money or I don't. It's going to go public in a better environment at a higher price, and I'm still going to have a lockup and everything, but it's going to be a lot higher. I think it's worth $1 billion. And the whole McEwen Mining with the asset mix that they have is getting a value of less than $200 million. You've got 3 mines, both gold and copper. It's the Fox Complex, Gold Bar in Nevada, San Jose in Argentina. They get a 49% cut of and have been for years, and the mine life has just been extended. 2020 guidance ounces plus, I think they said between 140 and 170 something. They've been above what they forecast. The turnaround is in. They are looking at a substantial reduction in all-in sustaining costs on this stuff to what they're putting in these projections. They got crunched on their all-in sustaining and we're losing a lot of money, but that now has been reduced. You're talking about, I'm just trying to find it, average all-in sustaining at Fox Complex in Timmins, Ontario, which is where they had the bulk of the problems, by the way. They put $10 million in exploration in the program to expand it during 2022. More that was in 2021, despite the production problems. That's going to put out 45,000 to 50,000 ounces of gold for this year. And it's higher grades being mined. It's going to have its first full year of production with an all-in sustaining cost of $12.45 US an ounce. The NPV at 5% on just Fox, okay, at the PEA stage expansion with including this Froome portion of the deposit, which expands it even further. At $1,800 gold, it's the whole market cap of the company. It's $192 million. At $1,650 gold, it's $137 million. Then you've got Gold Bar. This is putting out 40,000 ounces a year or so. That cost has come down. The fourth quarter is going to be really interesting for them. It's going to be profitable. Nobody's paying attention to it. Everybody discounted Rob, threw the baby out with the bathwater. The turnaround took too long. You forgot this guy's one of the best in the business. He's much wealthier than you and I, not because he's stupid or doesn't execute. It's got his name on the door. You think he's going to go and leave this thing as a disaster? You got to look at these different type of signs and tell yourself, I got to own some of this stock when nobody else wants it. And I got to not be in a rush to sell it. Or maybe I sell a third at a triple and then see what happens, because it might just be a bubble that ends up coming in metals and mining stocks at some point that could take something like a McEwen from $3 to $30 to $50. I don't think it's out of line. It was already at 122 split adjusted before in a year ago. So wake up, guys. If you're not buying something like this now, shit. Let me just get this one graph. I was blown away last night looking at this. We talk about ounces in the ground. This is producer. And so you want to look at the non-production copper assets of what do you value the copper in the ground, copper equivalent, which is just trading for nothing, being valued at nothing. It's a massive asset, like 40. It's going to be 40 plus years mine life for copper. Do you know how much that the world is going to need this type of thing to go into production? It is going to be desperation. to get a hold of this stuff in 2 to 3 years for the battery metal growth and all that stuff. But you're talking about a company, it's got 12, 13, almost 14 million ounces of gold in the inferred, measured, and indicated, proven, and probable reserves and resources categories. So on top of that, 145, 95, 25. On top of that, close to 300 million ounces of silver. And then you've got in the inferred and measured and indicated 30 billion pounds of copper. So do the math on $3, 100 billion plus. And this thing's trading for like a song. And how many CEOs do you know in this space, which has to have a disruption of how we think about management, what's acceptable and what's not, with our hard-earned dollars going into these juniors where, these guys are geologists, they don't know the markets, they have a tough time running one company and taking it higher to extract value. So they take salaries from 2 or 3, and they're an advisor over here, and they're lifestyle companies. And this has got to stop. I stopped financing good companies, good guys, good management, good people, and good assets that are never going to get monetized because they have no skin in the game, and they're just making sure they're pulling salaries from 3 different companies and moving them along at a steady pace. Forget that crap, guys. Phenom Resources is my biggest position in anywhere. Okay. I don't know if I have more in Bitcoin and gold or no. Phenom Resources is where I have the most money. I just did a count. I own 6.9. It might be 6. It might be 7 million plus. Because I haven't checked all the accounts that I have with holding this probably. So call it 7 million shares and warrants of Phenom Resources, which is trading at, which has 83 million or about 100 million outstanding with the warrants. So I'm about, I looked at it, I'm about 6.5% of the company I own, okay, personally. I wrote a $500,000 check Canadian. Rob McEwen wrote a $1.5 million check Canadian. Tuki Angus, one of the most successful M&A lawyers and advisors in mining. The players all know who he is. We don't know his name as much because he doesn't have as much of a celebrity name, if you will, but he's a very wealthy guy. He's coughed up another, he's already got put in 200 grand plus every round of financing. We're going to have more phenoms coming in. They'll be invited at higher prices, but we're down in the 30s Canadian. I'm down, I put in 400 grand, my biggest investment ever at that time. Canadian in the previous round, we did 6 million, and that's where Rob came in for his initial 400,000. So I'm down about 25%, probably at least in not only those, but just open market purchases. I've been buying this thing steadily for a while. There's a ton of value there. And I'm realizing I don't want this to go over an hour. So some people will actually watch it and listen to it, but I'm going to just say that, who cares if it goes over an hour? This is important stuff, I think. And frankly, what I can convey to you today, I put it through a filter of like, you can bank on it. There's not a lot that I'm doing that I'm conveying. And frankly, there's not a lot of people, and this is not even tooting my own horn. It's just a fact. And a lot of you watched it happen over and over and over again. I pick big, fucking huge, monstrous stock winners. And I just have had a knack for it my whole life. And what people don't understand is that it doesn't make any difference if you have a bunch of junior miners that you buy. Say you're in the, doing the private placements or in the open market. If you own 10, this is why venture capitalists, the best in the world, have what is called a portfolio effect. They think they're great at picking out the best of the best with the best options and best potential to make them 10 to 100 times their money. And weed out, there's certain things you look for to have those criteria. And I know what those are in venture. I know what they are in mining. I know what they are in general market stuff and bets and crypto and all kinds of different things. But they don't exactly know. The best in the world don't exactly know which ones are going to hit first or hit how much. I have junior mining companies like Abra Plata, Abra Silver, it's called now, which has an unbelievable silver asset in Argentina, Diabillos. You know, I got to talk to the chairman, Rob Brueggemann, and the CEO, John Miniotis. I think that it was 4 years ago when myself and a couple handfuls of elite members saved that company. We ended up putting in like 300 grand out of 400 or something. The company raised a little bit. They had an option they had to make a payment on to keep Diabillos coming up in like a month, and they had nothing, no money, no nothing, no support. And I remember sitting at my computer making a conscious decision saying, I'm going to take a shot on this one. Normally I wouldn't do something like that where you've got, it wasn't a lot of money, but, and some people, I said, this is such high risk. You can put in like 7,500 or $5,000 if you want. Like, I usually don't mess around with less than people that want 25 or more for a minimum. And like that last Phenom round at 50 cents was, when it was, I was talking to people about it, it was a $500,000 minimum. Some people did come in, I think, as low as 250, but it was a big boy round. And, so right now you can buy that stuff at a discount to us. But I remember with Abra Silver, that was a 5-cent placement with a 5-year, 10-year warrant. The stock is trading at 45 cents today. It went higher before, but even today in this market, guys, this deal is trading at, I just want to check it too, because this is a really good success story. And a part of the analogy I'm giving you, it's at 44 cents Canadian. So give me the benefit of the doubt. It's 9x up, say 45 cents Canadian. We're up 9 times our money there. And then we're up another 7 times our money unrealized on paper for the warrant. So 16x, okay? You do 10 investments in the space at 10 grand or $1 million each, whatever your size level is, or even less, $1,000 each. It doesn't matter. You spread it out in deals like this, in market environments like this. This is the key. This is the most important thing I could say today. You got to take action and plant seeds when everybody else is scared and these stocks are bombed out and they're not even trading for days, and it is retarded in terms of just logic. And you got to, that's why the whole thing too is like, I had a discussion with a very smart individual who's a big fund manager, very wealthy, and one of my best friend from college who does institutional research sales for a big bank. And we were just talking about how the fund managers, if you're a fund manager, are just as bad as retail in terms of being sheep, not in terms of intelligence. Here's the thing. There's emotional intelligence and there's intelligence in terms of an IQ. And, you can look at these in different ways. But what's the difference of an edge in the returns of the best over the other ones who just want to keep their cushy job and not make a mistake? It's called your fucking balls. Looking down and being able to have courage in the face of looking around and there's nobody around with you. Do you have comfort doing something when there's very little consensus? You can find people that are bullish like me, but it's hard to take action if you're reading the news. It's hard to take action if you've got, a job paying you $500,000, $1 million a year, and you're a fund manager, an RIA, or a broker, and you're just sitting there timid like a little bunny. You've seen this a million times, and you don't have the fucking courage to do something where you actually make a mark on people's returns, on your life, on your career. You're going to have to be able to do that to be the best. And I consider myself still at this age. And, after being a student of the market for 30 years now, I started following and learned about the stock market that had existed when I was 17 and worked as an intern at Merrill Lynch when I was 17 years old and 18 years old, and then at Piper Jaffray, which is U.S. Bank now, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In my college days, I drove an hour and a half from school 2 days a week to go cold call and learn from brokers. I might not have a degree or a master's from Harvard, but I've got a lot of experience in this stuff. And it's weird how it comes down to these intangible things like, can you make a decision on your own? Can you listen to your conviction? Can you have courage? Can you bet against the crowd? Or are you just another sheep who you could do good? It's not like it's that bad. I think one of the big enemies, though, if you want massive returns and get rich and change your life, these are what I'm talking about, because that's what happened to me. not what's going to happen to me. That's what I did. That's what occurred because of my shifts in thinking and action. I was just going to look up the Abra Plata. Anyway, so 10 different venture bets, and that thing is worth at 16x $160,000. So if you put 10K in 10 deals, that's already worth 160. You can have 5 of them go to zero. 5 go to nothing. And then you have, so we have 4 more. One of the rest of them triples. One's up 20%, and the other 2 are down 80%. Your return on investment, your ROI overall of that basket, because you're going to have over 200 grand out of your 100, depends on the time frame, but even if it's 5 years, your ROI overall is fantastic. And frankly, I've never had 5 companies that I did venture bets on go to zero. I'm just using an extreme example. And over and over and over, people that have been at this newsletter at certain times, but it's been usually in environments like this, making a call on something like McEwen. I can tell you right now, I'm a humble person. I've been, this stuff isn't mine. I'm on borrowed time. The breath I breathe is borrowed and not mine. So I'm not here in a prideful way, but I'm just telling you in a factual way, I'm right. It's just a question of like, can Mux go back to $3 or even $2 before it goes to 10 to 20 bucks? Sure. I don't think it's going to, but I'm right. You should look at it now before it's back to $6 to $8 and moving higher. And Rob's in there buying more because he can't resist, and he realizes he's got to buy more and bring his average down too. People start seeing that. Confidence comes back. 1 to 2 years, gold at 2,200. This stock could be $50. I mean, like, there's such little downside. Phenom Resources, real quick. Sorry for taking a while, guys. I hope some of you are enjoying the this is like an impromptu thing, but I am sticking to a theme. Yeah, Alex, tax. Yours was Encore. Awesome, man. That's freaking awesome to hear. I'm glad we had Encore Energy. Another good example of, let me just pull it up. I'll tell you the facts. I got bullish too early on uranium back in, I'll tell you right now, guys, this is worthwhile because many stories like this and the Abra that we've been in the middle of and saved. I think Bill Sheriff would have raised money to keep that company going no matter what. He's been around a long time, but I approached him, and this was back in late 2016. I came to him and we led a financing. Actually, yeah, it was earlier in 16, maybe even in late 15. It was at the bottom of the bear market in miners. I came to him and I said, I want to lead a financing. We'll take like 400 or 500 grand. We did it at 6 cents. He ended up having some other interest out of Toronto with a 10-cent warrant. And it was good for, I think, 4 years or something, long time. So we had plenty of time. So like that thing, I think we did it at 6 and 10. I approached him. I wanted more uranium exposure. I thought we were getting close to the bottom. Sure enough, we had that thing go in 2017. I'm just trying to get my facts straight. It had gone up to a high of 45 cents, but then came all the way back down to really low levels. I might have my timeline a little screwed up, but I think it was the February of 17 that, or perhaps the month prior. We even took down an institutional piece in the open market. It was a cross. I gathered together. It traded 20 million shares that day at 12 cents, and the stock proceeded. I'm doing this by memory now. To fade back to a nickel. So we were early and we were loaded deep, and I continued to recommend buying it. And I didn't think I was wrong. I just thought I was wrong on when. And sure enough, that stock hit a high of $6.81. I think what's happening here is I'm talking in, they did a split, but in any event, so they did a split. So it's throwing me off a little bit to be listed. Now they're on the New York Stock Exchange. And Canadian, it hit $6.81. So call it, that's 100x, right? From six. If I'm getting it wrong, it's 50x because they did a 5-for-1 or something. But in any event, huge winner. And so, Alex, I'm super happy you killed it on that one, but you had to earn it. Super 6 cents. You had to earn it. You had to go through and wait, right? You had to give it time and believe in the deal. And you took action when other people were just saying, this is a piece of trash or whatever. There was a lot of uncertainty at a minimum. You said it changed your life. That's awesome. Because all it takes, guys, if you're in this game and you really want to make a difference, you need one or two of these and you could be done. Let me tell you something. You have 8 different junior miners that go up 100 to 650 times your money, and you're able to play that even ballpark correctly. You don't need to do anything ever again. That's what I was going for, and I'm there now, and I'm sharing this information because I'm super bullish. Phenom Resources is my baby. I own that up to 7 million shares. There's a small financing going on right now. We're topping that off. If you happen to have been in this stock for years and with me for years, and you want some of the placement to get that half a warrant, shoot me a note quickly. We're approaching fully subscribed on that. But like I said, I just put in 500 grand Canadian at 50 cents Canadian. Rob McEwen did it at 1.5 million. He led the round. He did half of that at $3 million round. And we're going to have superstars in this thing. When it's up at 80 cents a buck, $1.20, and vanadium's got a pulse. It doesn't have one right now, but vanadium is the clean energy battery metal of the future. It's better than lithium in so many ways. Okay. And we have the biggest, highest grade, near surface vanadium resource in North America. And it's just getting bigger. Over 60 holes were just drilled. That's going to take, I think it added at $7.5, $8 a pound vanadium. It added something in the ballpark of $200+ million in vanadium. And it's going to be the biggest here, and it will continue to grow. I think the resource itself that we now own fully, paid all the option payments, did a PEA on it, that'll improve. We're up for $200 million grants that we're going to find out probably within 6 weeks if we get one of those, which changes everything. We're hunting for different vanadium assets to build in. We've got the big kahuna, Dave Matheson of gold in Nevada, drilling deep below the Carlin vanadium resource, and is convinced we have got and have already tapped into a major gold system. Just have to find the feeder to prove it. And I think that what blows me away about Dave, the more that I learn, this is why I've got so much money bet here. The vanadium asset is worth multiples of the company's market cap today. That's my defense. That's my insurance policy. It's already established, and there's a bright future for vanadium. It's just a question of it got smoked from 12 down to 7 and change a pound, along with the global economy this year, with the rise in rates and the slowing of. It's mostly used in steel right now as a strengthener and a heat absorbent. Part of a stainless steel, you add 2% vanadium to stainless steel, and it's twice as strong and less vulnerable in a lot of ways. It's an amazing metal. On the battery side, you can't get any better. They're going to disrupt. There are companies we're talking to that claim to have done the work and the product and the technology. Still fairly early, but it's like, these guys are saying that their battery technology can be put into electric vehicles, even though it doesn't matter, because the industrial stationary energy market, battery metal market, growth for redox flow batteries, but even improved iterations of that, which is now kind of come to market and come to light, I think, next year. We don't even need the EVs, but you're talking about twice plus the distance on one charge that takes 2 minutes for a fully charged battery that never needs a replacement of vanadium in the battery. It's recyclable and cheaper than lithium. So what's going to happen with vanadium in the future? A lot. But the gold is where I'm counting on having a monster win. When Dave Matheson, who probably arguably has found more gold or as much gold in Nevada as any other person that has ever lived. Very involved when the Carlin trend was finally drilled deeper by innovators and open-minded thinkers like him. He had to fight for that because they didn't want to waste the money on the drilling in bad markets. And then all of a sudden, the biggest trend in the world opens up in Nevada, and hundreds of millions of ounces are discovered. He talks about the analogy of the gold system at our South Carlin vanadium project, deep with the holes they've drilled, which I think are about 20 holes we've drilled in the last 2 years. And they're deep holes. They're 1,500 feet plus deep. They cost a lot of money. They take 2 weeks for one hole to drill and complete. Companies, I'm well aware, can go broke doing this, but we're doing it prudently. And there's enough information now where the vectoring in to the feeders, I have a lot of confidence in Dave, and he's going to find what he has given the analogy of being very similar to two different deposits on the Carlin Trend, Gold Strike, which looks like it's at the end of the day, with what's been mined and what's there, 100 million ounces of gold at Gold Strike. Enormous. Gold Quarry is the other name he brings up, that owned by Newmont. 50 million ounces of gold. So we're not messing around. If we get a feeder zone discovery there's 2 grants for 100 million on the vanadium side, and it looks like we are on the cusp of another large, potentially enormous, closer to surface, new gold discovery at Smoke, which Dave optioned to the company, and he's had since 1986. He bought up the claims there, named it Smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And we've been encouraging each other, and it's been a good partnership, because my offer to Paul Colley, the CEO, and Dave Matheson is, I trust you guys, and I'll bet on you guys, and you're never going to run out of money. As long as, Dave, you tell me you want to keep drilling something, if you give up, you give up. And that actually happened already at a property that we optioned, and drilled some holes and said, it's not worth it. Fine. These are very honest guys, very humble. But I said, you're always going to have money to drill. And they've been drilling constantly there. There's assays pending. You've got work on us acquiring a third gold asset that would be a 3 asset on the gold side. Vanadium, we've got other assets that you're going to see added on. It's already the biggest in North America, highest grade. And we have a copper asset in Arizona. So put that into the gold camp. And then sometime in the first half of next year, we're going to spin these companies out. You're going to have Phenom Vanadium and Phenom Gold, probably 2 different companies, 2 different public companies. And, obviously the majority of the stock is going to be owned and given to, say we spin out the gold, to the people who own PHNM and PHNMF right now. So, there's a lot going on, guys. I mean, all I can tell you is, if you trust anything about my abilities and or what I say and do, and you've been around for a while, I own almost 7 million shares in warrants in this deal. So at 33 cents, man, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money I've put in here and have at risk for me. I was a guy who sometimes I couldn't even afford to put anything into private placements of the ones that I was leading raises on with my clients, because I didn't have any money. I was broke, or I just couldn't do it, or I would come in for 20, 25K Canadian, and that was the case for a long period of time. But then it all changed, because my mindset changed, and my viewpoint changed, and the way that I approached buying and selling and portfolio management, and just the way that I acted. I don't know if it's because of getting older and or, that principle that I mentioned in the beginning. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I'll also just say, lastly, for those of you that are sitting in Giga Metals, that is my 3rd biggest position. Phenom Resources, where I have, what is the number? It's about, I didn't pay for the warrant exercises yet, but those are going to come. And, most of what I own is like 3/4 of it is stock that I bought and paid for. And then there's some warrant component, but call it, and then I'm down. So 2 million plus $2 to $2.5 million I've put into Phenom, and I'm down 30% on, as you can buy in the open market right now for 33 cents Canadian, or like, 23, 24, 25. Just buy it at the offer too, if you want some of this. Just nibble and do it, regularly and daily, and build a position. McEwen, I have put in, I think, over $1 million, but it's worth like a lot less. Maybe I haven't put in a million. It's my 2nd biggest position. And then there's Giga. I own millions of shares of Giga that I bought in the open market, and I'm down on paper about 20% here with it here, maybe 15 to 20%. I'm down because I've been consistent and I bought anything I could in the 20s. This deal's a joke. It's a great example. It's my favorite nickel position. They have a Turnagain asset that's been developed over decades. It's going to be a 36-year mine life. It's massive. It produces clean concentrate, everything that people want and see and need for battery metals. And nickel's always a component of every variation that you see out there in the different car companies and things, and what they put in terms of cobalt, copper, lithium, nickel. Nickel's always around. You have 90, call it 100 million shares outstanding, a market cap of $29 million Canadian, or if we look at it from the US side, which is what I like to price these things in, the things at 23 cents US, $22 million US market capitalization. And they just got $8 million from Mitsubishi that valued the Turnagain property at $54 million, $53 million Canadian. They took a 15% piece for $8 million Canadian. They're going straight down the chain to the assets themselves, and that's what you're going to see from the car companies next. They were the first to go. And Mark Jarvis at Giga, congrats to him. He got them. And it's going to start, as these markets don't even need to improve, where you're going to start to see this stuff float back up, whether it's after tax selling season or we've already seen the lows, which I think we may have. But yeah, it's a weird time of year. It's a good time to be buying. That's why I put this video out. And into next year, you're going to start to see things where they make more sense. So Mitsubishi pays to buy into just Turnagain, not the company. They have other assets. They're not super valuable. I'm in this for Turnagain. But you have something done, and it was done when the stock was like 26, 27 cents. They paid 100% premium to what the market is valuing the entire company at. So call it 50 million Canadian. It was 53, I think. So the next company that comes, like a Ford or Volkswagen or whoever he gets that he's been talking to for years, and now they saw somebody go first. These are sheep just like everybody else, the corporate types especially, with their nice jobs. Who's got the cojones to make a move? Mitsubishi, congratulations. So they came in, did this deal, which funds pre-feasibility study, a lot of drilling, a lot of activity. It's at the project level, not in Giga. So it wasn't dilutive. And they have $8 million in the bank from that. They move this forward. So they don't need to do a financing right away, even though that money has to go into the ground there. They might do a small one at some point for the other costs and whatever Mark wants to do. But, you're not going to see a lot of dilution here anytime soon. And my contention is he knows that if Mitsubishi was first and paid 50 million Canadian, Ford's going to have to pay 100 million plus. I see Giga Metals still, target is $1.50 to $2. It's trading at 30 cents. And I think it happens sometime within the calendar year next year. If it doesn't, if it takes 3 years, but you get, 7 times your money, who cares? It doesn't matter, guys. Once it actually materializes, the time has passed, but and it does affect our annualized return on investment. So I don't want it to take forever. But if they do and they pay off, things still can change really a lot, So still love Giga, Phenom. So Giga is my third biggest position. And I don't think I've put $500,000 in there, but it's been close. It's a lot of money to have in a little penny stock. Same with Phenom Resources. And my average positions in usual miners, I mentioned IM Gold, I mentioned Equinox. Mux I would put in that category, maybe a little bit below, because IM Gold's a 1 million ounce a year producer almost of gold, a little bit less. Equinox is bigger in the market cap side too, but Mux is sort of in the middle, but I think we'll end up joining like an Equinox level, and IM Gold's getting closer to that. And these are also takeover targets. Rob wouldn't sell it anywhere near here, but like IM Gold trading at these prices as a 1 million ounce producer. These are not laying around all over the place, guys. Like, people don't get that this business is tough. And at one point, what's going to happen, and I'm going to wrap up, is everybody's going to wake up sometime over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, but are starting now, even with like this Mitsubishi deal being a good example. Everybody's going to wake up You look at all the presentations, any of you that were buying lithium stocks and cobalt stocks, based on this boom that was coming in EVs to drive demand back in 16, 17, 18. That market really started to get really crazy and promoted a lot in 18, really was a big peak year, 19. But everything I looked at with presentations and PowerPoints was the apex all hit around on all of them, and even do now, 2024-ish. Give it a year or take a year. But that's when there is not enough supply in these metals, in these energy battery metals, to meet the actual demand in just the EV growth that's kicking the market demand up globally. And a lot of these are booked out. People buy this stuff a year, 2 years in advance. You still want a Tesla, you can't get it today. So look, recession, rising rates, whatever. I mean, that trajectory, that hockey stick is not going to vary too much. And everybody's going to wake up and say, shit, Toyota is going to go, we don't have any cobalt or nickel or lithium or copper past 2029 secured. And there's no mines coming up. What do we do? And that's going to happen across broad, global, huge companies. And then all of a sudden, those of us that own all the metals in the ground, they're going to be knocking on our door. And I think I'll still be a little more patient. You could pay me a little bit higher for my stock and our assets that we own as owners, as shareholders in these companies. So for those of you that are still around and listen to this, I appreciate it. I know I haven't been sharing a lot of information lately. Today, I wanted to give you some specifics on simply, companies that I've been buying and own. I mean, I'm still building my positions. I have a ton of Phenom. I don't need any more, but if it gets any cheaper, I'll buy it every day. If Giga stays here and I have cash that comes in, I'll still buy more, because it's just like the Encore, Alex. I was early and people get impatient, and, but I'm not wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on this. On the nickel juniors, and in particular in Giga, you buy shares here, you wait, and it's going to pay off. And it's not just going to pay off with a multiple, or it goes to, pennies and it's just bullshit, and nickel rolls over and goes to $2 again a pound. It's just not going to happen. Okay. So I'm really excited, guys, for 2023. I wanted to get into crypto. I'll do that in a separate video. This is way too long anyway, but hopefully some of you enjoy the long content, and I'll send this out, right? This broadly distributed for those that listen to it a lot. It's a long video. I appreciate it. I think, the fact, if you're just even still listening to me when I haven't been communicating that much, even over the past year, call it, I appreciate it. I thank you for that. And I wanted to make it worth your while with something that, you can take action on, and we can make some money together. That's why we're here. And we're going to, and I'm really pumped and I'm feeling good, and you'll hear from me a bit more. I'm not going to make any promises on how often though. Okay. Have a great rest of your night.